Alright everybody, welcome. I'm going to try and talk a little louder here today because I heard somebody was saying that my audio was low last time. But anyways, here we are at the unit review for the Earth Science, Environmental Science. And so the first thing here, we got 3 biotic factors and 3 abiotic. Now that could be really anything. For biotic, it would be things like, grass, squirrels, birds, whatever, jaguars. And abiotic would be things like water, rocks, gases in the atmosphere, things like that. Number 2, what are the Earth's 4 spheres? That would be things like the biosphere, the geosphere, the atmosphere, and the hydrosphere. Okay, number 3, what 2 spheres are interconnected in the following examples? Trees and plants require carbon dioxide to carry out photosynthesis. That would be the biosphere and the atmosphere. The second one here, the river erodes, a river erodes rocks. That's the geosphere and the hydrosphere. The volcano, a volcano gives off carbon dioxide as it erupts. That would be like the geosphere and the atmosphere. And then the last one with plants and minerals, that's the biosphere and the geosphere interacting. Number 4, how does Earth trap thermal energy or heat when the sun's rays reach the Earth? So that's the greenhouse effect. That's where basically light comes in the form of energy, as light energy, and it when it hits the Earth or it bounces within the the atmosphere, it gets reflected as heat or thermal waves, and those waves, some of them escape, but some of them do not. And they remain in the Earth's atmosphere, warming the temperatures of the Earth's surface, warming the air that's close to the Earth's surface, we'll say. That's the greenhouse effect. Just like being in a greenhouse, it's really warm inside of a greenhouse. Okay, in the water cycle, number 5, when the precipitation occurs and falls upon the land, what 3 things can happen to the water after that point? Well, actually, if we were to go back to the water cycle and what have you. As you can see, here's a little diagram of what can happen to water. Water can run along the surface as runoff. That would be number 12. Water can go down and sink into the ground and run along inside the ground, and that would be, an example of, what would it be an example of? Sort of like under groundwater, yeah. Sink in and become groundwater. Okay, just a pause for a second. Okay, sorry, I was just interrupted. I'm here again. So getting back to 3 things that can happen to water. Well, we've talked about runoff, we talked about groundwater, and the third thing would be transpiration, or like uptake into plants. And that would be like when the plants take up the water, the water goes through them kind of. It actually goes into them and through them and into the air. And so that would be probably 3 things that can happen to the water. Actually, also 2, fourthly, there's evaporation. Just straight off the land, you can have evaporation as well. All right then, that's all of that. So now, getting back over here to number 6, name 4 layers of the Earth, starting from the inside and moving to the outside. That would be the inner core, the outer core, the mantle, and the crust. Which biome has the lowest amount of rainfall? Okay, what would that be? That would be deserts. The coldest temperatures, that would be, let's go to our biomes. Here we are. That would be permanent ice. Which one would have the most diversity of plants and animals? That would probably be the tropical rainforest. That's got a wide variety of organisms. And then the African savanna, that's the number D here, or letter D. And like in the Lion King, that would be the grassland. And then lastly, what would you find tundra in? Oh, goodness. Well, there you go. Tundra is tundra. So I kind of made a mistake there, but that's fine. So tundra is one of the biomes. That's the easy one. Okay, what is the main process that happens in plants and trees and all other living things that all other living things depend on? That's the idea of photosynthesis, basically. That's going to be carbon dioxide plus water gives oxygen and sugar. As 2 reactants and 2 products. Right? And what is similar between the above reaction and cellular respiration? Well, cellular respiration is just the opposite of photosynthesis. When cellular respiration goes on, that's oxygen and sugar combine and give off energy. It's a release of the energy, and that will then produce carbon dioxide and water. All right, number 10, when we're looking at this climatograph, what month is the driest in Mangalore? Or what month are the driest? Well, sorry, months. There's going to be several months here that are the driest. I would say that would be January and February. It could be said that March is as well, but March has a little bit more than February and January. I would say January, February are the driest, and then March and December are the next driest. Which month has the most precipitation? And that would be July. Okay, which month is the hottest month? It's kind of a toss-up. I would probably say it's going to be probably April. And which is the coldest month? Okay, that looks like it's going to be roughly August. Or it could be said that maybe there's another one in here. It's just hard to see. So probably August. Okay, turning the page over. In the course of a year, what is significant about June 21st? Well, that happens to be the first day of summer. And it's also the longest day of all the year. So that's basically answering that question. At what two times in the year do the equinoxes occur? Well, that's the spring equinox and the fall equinox. And that would be September 21st is the fall equinox, and March 21st is the spring equinox. What is different about a food chain and a food web? Well, a food chain, like this one, basically has only one route that shows the path of the eating relationships, and perhaps even you could talk about the energy as it goes along. But a food web is a bit more elaborate. It shows several different eating relationships. It's like this one here, where one organism could be eating two different things, or, be eaten by two different things, or three different things. So, yeah. Okay, so over here, using this image that we have here of a food chain, which organism is the herbivore? Well, that's going to be the caterpillar. Which organism is the tertiary consumer? Now, tertiary talks about third. There's the secondary consumer would be the, chameleon, because the primary consumer is the caterpillar. And the tertiary consumer would be the snake. Now, believe it or not, there's actually even more than just tertiary. There's quaternary. That's basically the fourth level. But that wasn't the question. So the snake is the answer to question B. Question C, what would happen to the other living things if the mongoose disappeared? So if the mongoose disappeared, the snake would increase in numbers. And if the snake increased in numbers, that would make a lot of competition, and the chameleon would decrease in numbers. If the chameleon decreased in numbers, that would make the caterpillars increase in numbers. And possibly then the leaves of all the trees would probably be eaten quite a lot, so maybe there would be a decrease in the amount of leaves on the trees. So there's kind of a pattern where one is greater in numbers, and then there's going to be followed by a decrease in numbers, and it kind of goes increase, decrease, increase, decrease. All right, so getting to number 15, give an example of a carnivore, a herbivore, an omnivore, and a detritivore. So a carnivore would be like something like a lion. A herbivore would be something like a giraffe. An omnivore would be something like, a human being, an ape, things like this that eat both plants and animals. A detritivore would be something like, I'm trying to think, probably a crow or a seagull. Those things, they eat dead things a lot of times. Okay, what would be a food pyramid of energy, or what would a food pyramid of energy show? And then how about a food pyramid of numbers? So a food pyramid of energy is sort of a depiction of, you know, how much energy is lost along the way. Now, I don't know if we can quickly bring one up here. Aha. Okay, so we got a food pyramid of energy, which shows a great decrease as energy goes along, and it gets really, really small as energy gets to the top. Sorry about the focus being off there. But then a food pyramid of numbers might look a little bit more like this, where you have an oak tree where there's fewer numbers, and yet aphids are greater in numbers. And so it sometimes doesn't always follow the pattern you would think it would follow. So pyramids of numbers look a little different. Okay, so that was basically the answer to number 16. Number 17, how about how much energy is lost between each trophic level? You probably know this. It's 90% is lost. So that means that only 10% passes along to the next level. 18, give two examples of invasive species, one plant and one animal. I would say the plant, you could say blackberry, you could say, you know, the Scotch broom or whatever it is, not the Scotch broom, the, gosh, forgetting the name of this one. Okay, so yeah, here we've got lamprey, we've got zebra mussels for the animal, we've got purple loosestrife for plants, we've got wild boars, which are not in this area, but, you know, and starlings, they're animals. And the Scotch broom, yes, the Scotch broom is a plant that's, it would be an invasive species. Okay, so then number 19, list 3 stores for carbon as it is moves through the carbon cycle. Use the image below for your answer. So 3 stores, there's lots of stores here, but, you know, you could say that, you know, there's stores within the ground that stay there a long time. It even says here that carbon dioxide's in the lithosphere. We have carbon dioxide that's being stored in the atmosphere. We have carbon dioxide that's, or carbon that's stored in plant and anything that's living. That's a short-term store. There's even probably stores of carbon in the ocean. We didn't really talk about that, but there are several different stores of carbon right there. Okay, and the last one here is list 5 possible effects of climate change. Now that one there came straight out of the page that we got as notes here. Trying to find here effects of climate change. So we got fisheries, we got forestry, wetlands, and wildlife. So there's many different things that could happen there, and everything from changing in weather patterns and you know, droughts, fisheries, you know, species migrating elsewhere, and you know, temperatures that cause the food supply to diminish. So there's lots of different things there. All right, so yeah, that's basically the list of going through the questions. Now, just quickly to kind of start from the beginning and going right to kind of the end of what we did, there is some actual, it'd be good to kind of know a little bit of interconnectedness, a few examples of how some, you know, maybe 2 different parts, 2 different spheres might interact. That might be kind of good to know just a little bit, because there might be one question on that. Knowing the difference between biotic and abiotic, that's key. Just knowing what maybe a few examples of each one. We already talked about this in our questions. So the greenhouse effect, as I kind of illustrated, that's a part of what we want to know. We don't want to know all these different layers of the atmosphere. I think that that was great. It's just a little bit too much information. Okay, so we're going to pass along over to here. This is the water cycle. I already talked about that. You know, just knowing some of the words, I would say that, you know, being familiar with these words is important. Okay. Okay, so we're passing along over to here, the layers of the earth. So just knowing those words and how the order that they go in, going from inner to outer. All right, so we're going to move along. So biomes, I would say that, you know, the biome stuff just know the 8 biomes kind of in general. Well, these ones here. So permanent ice, tundra, boreal forest, just kind of generally know their characteristics. So I might just make a description of a biome, and you maybe have to tell me what kind of, to choose which biome would probably be the choice, and maybe there'll be 5 or so choices. Okay, know how to read a climatograph. What's the warmest time of year? What's the coolest time of year? What's the greatest amount of precipitation? Which month did that occur in? Okay, so that's all this. And then just a little bit about sunset, sunrise. We did that one little activity here. And I guess the main thing is this. I think I handed out something to you. It was yellow, and it looked like this. So, just knowing the equinoxes and the solstices and kind of when they would occur and how they are marking the seasons. Just this stuff right here. All right? Okay, now all these terms, energy flow, food chain, pyramids, pyramid of numbers, food webs, all these different phrases and things that we have in our notes, this stuff. This is important, Okay, so I know that I already talked about this, but this is a flow of energy and, sort of the photosynthesis. And, I don't have cellular respiration, but that's basically the reverse of photosynthesis. All right. Okay, so yeah, like if I was to ask, food web here, okay, just a typical food web, what would happen if, say, butterflies, insects and their larvae just disappeared? What would happen? Well, the grouse would have less food. Maybe they would diminish, and then maybe the owls would be affected because their food supply would also diminish. So, maybe there's going to be some effects. But also, too, if butterflies, disappeared, well, the pike would have more food because there wouldn't be as much competition. And maybe they would increase. And if they increase, then maybe that would actually supply more food to the owl. So there's going to be some effects if, say, one organism were to disappear. All right. Food chains, very similar in a lot of ways to food webs, there's only one path. And, just know if I could ask which is the herbivore, well, that would be the caterpillar. Which is the secondary consumer, that would be the hawk in this case. Oh no, it would be the snake, sorry. All right. Okay, we're just about done here, I would say. Invasive species, we kind of know about that already. And, they upset the balance of, our ecosystem, and so we want to really be cautious and not have them, introduced into areas where we shouldn't have them. Nutrient cycles, I would say the most part is carbon cycle, and know the stores where carbon is stored, and perhaps some of the things that moves carbon from one place to another. All right, and then getting on over here to the effects of climate change. We already talked about that. And that's it. Okay, so thanks for listening, and I hope that you, just do great on your test. Okay, talk to you later. Bye-bye.